It worked.
Yes. So welcome everyone. This is the Node.js Technical Steering Committee meeting for July 1st, 2021. We are going to go through the agenda items as usual. But first, does anyone have any announcements?
Security release is coming out today. Or rather, they're all already out.
Yeah, I was going to ask.
Yay. Hooray! Thank you to everybody involved. As folks might not know, there is a lot of work that goes out in those ones. So that happens under the cover. So it's really silent work. So big shout out to all the people involved.
Any other announcements? Okay. Moving to the agenda items then. The first one is adding HTML form data handling to core. This is issue 38943 on the core repository. And Matthew, do you have any context on this one?
Sorry, you were talking to me? Sorry, I got distracted for a second.
So the HTML form data handling issue. I think you have some context.
I have some context. I do actually. So this is there was some questions related to from Dustin, a friend of mine, asking if to add the form API and possibly even mime to some extent. That was also mentioned to the discussion. And there was some discussion back and forth also on mime to not like, there was really not clear what we wanted to do with this kind of things, that it went back to the discussion of what should be in core, what should not be in core, opened by Robert. So to some extent, it's probably better to postpone until that happens, because I think it's, that's very, to some extent, those two are connected, because it's adding new things in core. Does it make sense to add this in core? It's clearly one comes like, I will switch the order essentially.
Mm-hmm. So it makes sense to remove the agenda label until the other issue is resolved. Okay.
Yeah, I'll write it down. So we will go back to this once. Yeah, perfect.
I've added some links to the to be or not to be in core issue from this, so we have more context.
Thank you. So moving to the next one, which I think is going to be the same as this one. Future of Node HTTP client, issue 38533 on the core repository. think the discussion
it kind of
here
goes
was the
back
same.
to it's the same, actually, the original discussion, yeah, but then we had a separate discussion on why are we developing something from scratch? Why aren't we trying to improve the existing HTTP client code? And there was some controversy around that. I'm not sure, Matteo, do you have any comments in that regard?
I probably need to write those down somewhere, but my comment is that the current code base in Node core of HTTP.request cannot be improved without breaking everybody using it.
Yeah, and I'd second that. I've tried, and I've been on the
There's
edge of
nothing.
what we can break or what we can't break. It's
Yes, essentially, you try. We have proven it already so many times. Yeah. We can fix it and improve it if we are willing to accept breakage on all HTTP clients out there, on everybody using that library. I don't think that is against some of our core values. So the only workable path is to develop something new. I came to that conclusion like probably a little bit earlier than you, Robert, but it was you tried. You tried way harder than me to make it work on that client. I gave up. Well, I prototyped a little at the beginning to see if something else would work better, and it does work better. So I don't think there's much that I don't think it's salvageable to some extent. I would recommend marking it legacy, and fixing bugs if somebody can fix bugs, but not try to fix long-standing issues that are in there and leave them as legacy, essentially. Like those words need to stay there, and we are happy to keep them there forever.
I guess one of the other topics in that matter was regarding, so in order to even get Undici out of experimental, so to say, we need to have a larger code base, and that's why we wanted to have something in the documentation. But then there was some discussion on how that should look, and I'm a little bit questioning just adding something at the bottom of the documentation. I don't think actually does any practical difference. So the question is how to do that.
I would went ahead and marked the HTTP client legacy. It's essentially, for me, it's legacy status in all intent and purposes.
For me as well. But I think some people are uncomfortable marking it as legacy before we have something stable as an alternative.
Well, this is the status of fact is that we can add the new thing as experimental. And not mark it as legacy, okay? But it doesn't change the reality of the situation. Like there are very few people maintaining it, and those few people that do most of the work says, well, this code base is not, like the long-standing issues that we have are not fixable on this without breaking everybody. Yeah. Which, if then the TSC could say, in all ugliness, the TSC could say it's totally fine. You can go ahead and break all HTTP clients and all HTTP servers out there to fix them. I don't think that's valuable for Node.js at this point. So I will be opposed to that.
I'll make another try on updating the documentation there. That's a path. And we can't use that term without a replacement. Okay. But that feels a little silly because we consider it legacy, but we can't put it legacy. We don't have a replacement. That's like saying my broken car isn't broken because I don't have another car.
Yeah, well, that's the situation we are in. Anyway, we need to get a replacement in and be happy with that. Okay, so I might be comfortable, like for Undici, I might be comfortable in trying to get it in for the in master, as a vendor deemed that or something like that, and then we see how it goes. Yeah. Yeah, I see, Mary. Your point is totally correct, but it's yeah, it's. I would not, in fairness, I do not recommend folks to use that HTTP client as part of my job. So I would be in. It won't be good for me to say differently in a call or any public venue. So we might not agree on it, but it's also robust. Like it does what it says. But those if you have one of those issues, you should switch to Undici as soon as possible. Like we could probably articulate what the key issues are, Robert, so that it's probably clear for everybody that doesn't have that context.
It's probably a good idea to tweet as a comment on the issue. So the folks that are worried with marking it as legacy have the context without having to go through TSC agenda notes.
I'll do my best to get it in writing.
Sorry, I think I missed a little there, but I guess Matteo is doing something with it.
I'll write something down on why I recommend people not to use that. Okay, and I'll probably share the document with you, Robert, so that we work on the list of problems and that are there, and that would be definitely better served with the proper client.
Yeah, I guess we can move on.
Anyone else has anything in this topic? Okay, moving on to the next one. Renaming default branch from master to main. I think Michael is doing most of the work on this one, and since he's not here today, we can probably skip it, unless anyone else has anything to discuss on it. Okay, let's move to the next one then. Migration of core modules to primordials.
What is the status quo? Did we decide to pause that or?
I believe so, but I'm not sure either.
I think we should postpone that discussion until Antoine is on the call.
Sorry, until what is on core?
Antoine Duham Hamel.
He's the one
here, right?
advocating for it, so it's a good idea to have him here.
Yes, so we need to be the right set of people in the room to talk about it, essentially.
Okay, so we leave on the agenda and wait until.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving to the next one, resigning from CPC voting member. I opened this one to communicate that I will be resigning from the CPC voting member, and I'm looking for someone to take those responsibilities for representing the TSC on CPC. Anyone interested?
To be honest, I don't even know what the CPC is. So can you maybe add some more context in the issue?
Yes. So the CPC is the Cross-Project Council Committee. It's a OpenJS Foundation committee formed by project members, and the responsibility is like onboarding projects, helping with governance for projects, providing other things like code of conduct, shared across projects. Yeah, I don't think there's much more besides that.
I got a link from Rich there, so I'll read that through. I also posted in the issue.
Yeah, I should have linked that. But in terms of workload, it's one meeting every other week on Tuesdays, and then participating on issues. Giving a practical example, if we want to make changes to the TSC governance document, we need to get those changes approved by CPC first. And usually the TSC representative will bring this up to CPC. So just giving a practical example of how this impacts our project.
Rich is writing that it's you. Probably ends up on Michael's table if nobody else wants to.
Michael, I think, is already in it. It's already a working member. So it's Michael is already on. Like I have been filling that role for a while. Then I had to scale back some of my call. Like I could take it, but I can't make the calls. Like the problem, I need to the time zones. It's these time zones. It's rare that I can join at this late in the day here, at this point. So I can take the call, the meeting load, essentially. So
I think that's fine. I think most of the relevant stuff for the project still happens async on GitHub, so that's probably fine.
yeah, it's if as long as I don't have any expectation to join any meetings, I can take it as an interim or something. I can take back, you took from me, I can take it back essentially. It's but I cannot make any promise to join any meetings, so we need to check with the CPC if that is okay, because there was an expectation on that to be involved, and while I can be involved on the like more voting responsibilities and approval stuff and so on and so forth, I don't have the time for the meetings. So
okay, we can contact CPC to see if it's okay for you to join without joining the meetings. I can do that. Okay, moving to the next one, to be or not to be in core.
Yeah, that one is interesting.
One certainly is.
I think an interesting example in this context is a readable stream. And how that works or doesn't work, or Matteo. Because basically the idea there is that it is in core, but then we pull it out of core.
Well, I haven't updated it in a long while. It's on my to-do list of things to do, long, and it's one of the most downloaded modules on npm. So half of all people using Node Core, OG Node, use that module. It's what has made the stream ecosystem stable for a long while, so that we could evolve Node.js without breaking all those modules. So, which is a great thing. And they are all backward compatible. So essentially that version of readable stream, which is what was in Node 10, is really, really good for the ecosystem. On the other hand, it could potentially, like Node streams could potentially live in an external package. That will not be a problem for them, and then importing them to Node Core. Like, again, the key part is that it needs to be bundled in Node, because Node depend on it for everything. Like all the modules depend on that library, essentially, on that stuff.
We do have a clear difference there between modules that we depend on inside of core. Those modules make sense if they live in core, but then we have modules that core doesn't depend on to provide its functionality.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the question here, whether those should or should not be.
Well, it is a thing, okay? Like, so at some point in the nearest future, we would like to ship a fetch implementation in core. This is one of the most requested feature in the Node community. I would not recommend to base it on the current HTTP client.
No, but that brings me back to the question why? Because, for example, web streams we have to ship in core because it depends on native code. But fetch.
No, it's not true. It's not true. That's not true.
What it is for workers.
Our implementation of webs only for workers, but
yeah, for workers it needs to be in core. Yeah.
It needs to be a tiny bit of this needs to be in core. Yes.
Yeah. Well, we could have made a helper thing that. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay. So it would be good enough. Okay. We could have lived without that part, to be honest.
Yeah.
So it could have lived outside. But in order to be compatible with the rest of the ecosystem, they need to be in core for it to make a dent, essentially, in web compatibility.
But I think it's easier to have these things that are very well specified in a standard in core, because there's not so much evolution. So, for example, the web streams and fetch, they're very well defined.
Yeah, that is
standards.
Well, yes.
There's not so much
Those
evolution.
Those are great to have. No, I totally agree with that. That is also part of the reason why Undici was developed outside of core from the beginning, because we needed to iterate on, I don't know, maybe 20 different designs before reaching out to something that we'll be happy with, to be honest. Like the API we settled on is actually pretty great, but the in-between step and the middle layers and the abstraction is, it got a good evolutionary bits in there. So, like, from my point of view, it's if it's stable, if it has a good API, if it can be specified, then it's great to have them in core. If not, then not needed.
There is a variant here we can do, at least in the Undici case, is that we put Undici in core, but it's not publicly available. But we use it to implement fetch, which is publicly available.
What's the point?
Well, not break. We can continue iterating over the API inside of core then.
Well, from my point of view, the way we will embed it we'll start embedding it as a dependency in depths and pull in a Semver major change whenever a Semver major change of that happens.
We do that with other modules. Sorry, I wasn't familiar with that.
No, we do it for NPM. We do it for NPM.
Yeah.
So,
okay, so we could do it like that.
I would
how does that
expose
work
it under http.undici, yeah, something like that.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't.
I don't know. I'm just putting it out loud. Okay, we probably need to strengthen our LTS and backward compatibility concept inside Undici. So,
yeah. And how is it with tests, for example? Will we have to rewrite all of those to fit Node.js's test suite?
Well, it depends. Like again, depends how far we want to go with the integration bits. So I would not I would do one step at a time, essentially. First, vendor it in, then think if we want to have it all ported to our own automation.
So then now we're a little bit talking about the workflow.
Tobias, you said sounds like a good idea for implementing fetch to me. What do you mean?
I mean, adding it as a dependency like npm.
Yeah, sounds great.
Is that one way of, first step for, and not just Undici, but packages in general to be part of core?
The question might be, do we need Undici and fetch and the old legacy HTTP interface as public APIs? Do we need all three? Or might it be enough to have fetch and HTTP?
I would include Undici as well as the public API. There is a good reason for this. It's Undici fixes one of the old problems of the old HTTP library. Might not be the best API that is possible for that, but it provides internal support for mocking without having to monkey patch HTTP like Nock does. It's pretty bad. It's one of the reasons why we can't change anything. Like all those monkey modules in the ecosystem that goes around and monkey patches the hell out of Node Core, essentially. So, it's I would still expose it, but that's my preference. But if we don't want to expose it, that's also good. If we want to expose it in an ugly and nasty way and say, look, this is there. If you use it, your problem, to be honest. Okay, consider it low level, sort of light exposing.
But going back to this vendoring in thing, could we apply that to the mime module, like have it as an npm package?
I would say it depends. Like it depends if we want to. Like from my point of view, I moved away from the concept of having nodes to be extremely small.
As an Undici developer, I would much rather have Undici outside, because still developing in core, takes time. You have to compile every time you change something, etc., etc. So it would be much nicer to be able to continue have high velocity development outside, and then when you do an LTS of Undici, you vendor it into Node.
that would be my best recommendation in this case. Yes.
And that could apply to other modules and packages as well. And that, for example, if we did that with streams, then we wouldn't need readable streams in the same way. Then we would just render the readable streams in. Sorry, Mattia, I can't hear you. Is it just me?
Sorry, yeah, no, I was muted. So yeah, no, I would agree with the approach to generify that. I would, if you want to write that approach down and see if we can get somebody objecting.
Yeah, I can do that. Take a note on that.
Yeah, I like the vendoring approach. I think the only thing that's still not clear, and we're not gonna clarify today, but what are the conditions to vendor a module in core? And I think that's something that we're probably going to still face some pushback unless it's defined. Because vendoring is good and we have done that. Have we done
With NPM. And LLVP.
Oh, right, yeah. Vendoring is good, but we still don't know what we can vendor, so that's still an open question.
But I guess how we would like to do it is relevant to know in order to decide when we do it. So.
Anyone else has
I think it's a step forward. Let's see what the responses on that is.
I guess yeah, well, this doesn't have to happen in this meeting, but as someone has just reached out to me privately, a lot of this applies to efforts to get the mime. A lot of the things we're talking about are relevant to efforts to get mime module within core, and that might be worth a conversation, although not today. Maybe that can happen in the issue tracker.
So sorry, what was the question about having mime into core? Or
a lot of the issues around how Undici and other things would you do or don't become part of, a lot of the issues we're talking about today are relevant to other modules, in particular the mime module has a history of being proposed to be brought into core and feature requests, and so anyway, I'm mentioning that. And
yeah, I've already added to the to be or not to be core a list of examples of modules that have this, and there's a link to it as well, so that gives context. I think all of those things in that list is
they're all overlapping.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Cool. Yeah. Should we schedule an ad hoc meeting to talk about this? Because I think it seems like not everybody's interested in that discussion, and we have people not in the TSC that are very willing to talk about it. So I have a feeling that we might want to schedule an ad hoc meeting for that topic and have an agenda.
Yeah, I think there is a small population of highly engaged contributors who are not on the TSC who care about this issue, and I think that's a really good idea, Matteo.
Yeah, I think it's probably better not to be left to us to decide, and yeah, that's cool. I will ask somebody else to coordinate. I'm sorry, I would love to, but I can't right now. My life is a little bit complicated for a lot of reasons. some sort, one including a 7-month-old baby. So I would not ask to, I'm happy to join, but not taking any coordination activities. Sorry for that.
Maybe we can just sort of put a call out in the to be or not to be in core issue.
I'm doing that now.
Oh, great. Okay, so Mary's on it. Fabulous. So
should we move the issue to the node repo?
move from TSC to the main repo?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I don't know.
I'm just worried that we're gonna have too many opinions in the end.
Yeah, I mean, like we want people who are highly engaged in contributing to Node. And at this point in time, I don't know that it's helpful to have like people who just want their features in, who just want fetch in core. Yeah. So I would be inclined to leave it in the TSC repo for now, but I don't know. That's just my opinion. I'll defer to everybody else on that.
I'm fine with that, but do we ping specific people that we think should be involved, or all the contributors?
So how about Mary leaves the note and the comment in there, and then we can just ping individuals in subsequent comments. And if someone wants to if you want to ping all the collaborators, that would be appropriate. But I don't know that that's necessary. That is gonna reach a lot of people who won't want to, yeah. Anyway.
I left a comment on the issue. If anyone wants to ping collaborators or specific individuals, we can do in follow-up comments. Anything else on this issue?
Not now.
Okay, moving to the next one. Which teams should be allowed to land pull requests in Node.js/Node? So for context, with the introduction of the commit queue, we started allowing the triagers team to land pull requests as well via the commit queue label. Last week we discussed a little bit about this issue. I don't remember if we reached any decisions, but we raised again having a requirement for approval from code owners on pull requests, and there's also suggestions to have a manual label, which forces someone to land it manually instead of using the commit queue. Yeah, I don't know if anyone has anything that they want to discuss about this today. Or if anyone has any thoughts they would like to share about non-collaborators being able to land pull requests, or more precisely, triagers being able to land pull requests.
As long as they pass all the checks, I don't have any problems.
Yeah, I'm inclined to err on the side of giving triagers more responsibility, and if it doesn't work out, we can always pull back.
Can triagers start CI?
Yes.
They can start CI with a request label, with a request CI label. They can't log into Jenkins and start CI. I don't.
Oh, okay, yeah, the label.
Yeah, and similarly, they could land pull requests again with the label that has the bot landed. They wouldn't be able to push to master themselves, the master branch themselves.
Yeah,
and I think that's fine. And if there are problems, then we can come back and talk about, well, is the problem that we have an issue with our process, or is the problem that we really need collaborator? You know, do we need to automate more, or do we really need human intervention on the part of collaborators? But I'd be inclined to just let them do it at this point.
The only thing that is maybe a little concern for me is the Semver major PRs and landing those.
No, the automation makes the checks anyway.
Okay, so it checks for the TSC approvals and everything. Oh, very good, impressive.
Yeah, and if that ends up being an issue, down the road, for whatever reason, we can always modify the bot to, like, I don't know. Anyway, yeah, but
Let's try it.
Yeah, it checks.
Let's try and see how it goes.
Okay. Anything else on this issue? So moving to the next one. This is from the admin repo. Remove section on export control. It's a request that Michael opened a while back. And he needs approval to land the request. I saw the request. I have not approved because, not being a lawyer, I feel super anxious about approving such a change. So I would like more context before approving. I asked for the context on the issue. And yeah, but if other folks are comfortable approving, the request is open.
Who can provide context?
Brian from the OpenJS Foundation. Who was pinged on the request? Just didn't provide context yet.
Should we just wait for that?
Yeah, I don't feel comfortable making recommendations.
Yeah. Does it hurt to have it there? If we're worried about removing it?
So the request was open because the doc is, according to Michael, the doc is outdated, and the OpenJS Foundation has a new, different process to handle this kind of situation now. I don't know what the process is. It's part of the reason I'm reluctant to approve. Like, I'm super anxious about legal stuff, so yeah, it's on the TSC agenda mostly for visibility. So if folks can go and look and decide for themselves if they can approve or not, that's the reason it's on the agenda. Does anyone want to share any comments on this one? Okay, we have 9 minutes left. Should we go to the private section? Okay. I'm
Yes,
gonna
please.
stop the live streaming then. Thank you everyone for joining.